5 avoidant attitudes that prove you're just a substitute, not their priority. If this title stopped you for a moment, then somewhere deep inside, you already sensed that something wasn't right. Why? Because avoidants rarely speak the truth with words. Their behavior is their confession. They don't tell you what you mean to them. They show you, and what they show is often painfully undeniable. Have you ever felt like you were always a temporary spot in their life? Like a missing piece they needed only when their inner world felt empty. But the moment things stabilized for them, they quietly pushed you aside. That's what substitute energy looks like, where you fill their emotional gaps but never truly hold a place in their real priorities. Avoidants operate in a strange duality. They pull you close enough to make you feel like you matter, and then push you far enough to make you question whether any of it was real. This push-pull isn't random. It stems from their unresolved fears, their emotional shutdown, and their inability to tolerate stable closeness. And here's the dangerous part: the more you try to understand them, the more they treat you like someone who is easily replaceable. You look for clarity in their words, but avoidants rarely offer clarity. They keep you confused, create distance, and then build just enough emotional dependency so you continue to meet their needs, without them having to offer any genuine emotional investment in return. It's like they want the warmth of your presence, without the responsibility of truly choosing you. And when you start noticing their patterns, the inconsistency, the selective affection, the sudden coldness, a painful truth begins to surface: you were never their priority. You were simply an emotional placeholder, a comfort zone, a space where they could unload their loneliness without giving you real commitment. If these feelings, these shifts, this silence feels familiar, then maybe the answer was in front of you all along. You just weren't ready to hear it. And that's exactly why we're looking at this truth without filters, because clarity doesn't hurt you, clarity frees you. And today we're decoding the 5 avoidant attitudes that silently prove you were just filling their emotional void, not the person they were truly investing in. If this resonates, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and let's dive in. The very first thing that clearly exposes that you're not their priority, just their substitute, is their inconsistent attention. An avoidant's entire behavioral pattern runs on 2 tracks. They move toward you only when they need emotional comfort, distraction, or a temporary escape, and the moment their inner world settles, they quietly disappear as if nothing ever happened. This behavior is never random. It's a silent confession that their connection with you is based on need, not commitment. In the beginning, everything feels warm, engaging, even promising. They text you, check on you, show interest, but the moment their emotional state stabilizes, you suddenly slip off their priority list, and it's not because you did anything wrong. It's because they don't want someone to hold. They want someone to lean on temporarily. They crave relief, not consistency, and once they've taken that relief, they emotionally unplug, with no guilt, no explanation, no concern about how it affects you. You've probably noticed they reach out when they're bored, overwhelmed, lonely, or drowning in their own overthinking. But when you need connection, comfort, or emotional presence, they turn into air, sometimes there, sometimes gone. Their replies can be instant, hours later, or the next day, and the timing always depends on their mood, never your needs. This inconsistency isn't just a signal, it's a pattern, and patterns don't lie. When an avoidant is genuinely emotionally invested, their behavior becomes steady, regulated, and intentional. But when you're simply filling emotional gaps for them, their behavior feels like an on and off switch. One day they're warm, the next they're distant. One moment they're close, the next they're creating space like you somehow became too much, simply for being present. This push-pull doesn't reflect your worth, it reflects their internal chaos. And perhaps the most painful part, you never get a clear confirmation about what you truly are to them. They keep you in ambiguity because it gives them control. Their inconsistent attention doesn't diminish your value, it exposes their intentions. If this pattern feels familiar, don't turn against yourself. Don't try to decode mixed signals that were never meant to make sense. Don't absorb their unpredictability as a measure of your importance. Don't mistake their temporary affection for long-term emotional investment. Don't keep waiting for someone who only shows up for themselves, not for you. Instead, shift the focus. Choose people who match the consistency you offer. Give your energy to connections that feel mutual, not conditional. Let distance be a filter for those who can only love in fragments. Stand firm in your worth even when someone else's behavior tries to blur it. And most importantly, don't let inconsistent people convince you that your desire for stability is too much. It's not, it's a standard. The second thing that makes it clear you're not their priority, just a substitute, is how they mirror care but never actually initiate it. With avoidance, you often end up doing 80% of the emotional labor, while they only respond, they never take the first step. This isn't because they don't care at all, it's because their connection with you is conditional and reactive. They show interest only when it suits them or when they sense a need, never as a genuine investment in your emotional well-being. That's substitute energy in its purest form. At first, this behavior can feel confusing. They laugh when you joke, nod when you talk, match your energy when you're emotional. It almost feels like they're engaged. But the catch is simple, they're not initiating anything. They're only reflecting what you give. Every text you send, every effort you make to emotionally connect, every moment of vulnerability you share, they mirror it back in a safe, controlled way. You feel seen, but only in proportion to what you're already giving. They will respond if you reach out, comfort if you show distress, or reassure if you seek clarity. But if left alone, they rarely make the first move, rarely create space, rarely show intentional care. When someone is truly prioritizing you, they don't wait for a cue. They check in because they want to know how you're doing. They invest without being prompted. They show up consistently because your presence matters to them, not just your reaction to their presence. Avoidants operate differently. They maintain a careful balance, enough reflection to keep you engaged, enough distance to protect themselves. And it's a subtle, almost invisible dynamic that leaves you constantly questioning, do they really care, or are they just here because I made space for them? This mirrored behavior also creates emotional exhaustion. You constantly give, initiate and strive to keep the connection alive, while they maintain control by only reacting. Over time you may notice patterns. You reach out first, you make plans, you send "how are you" texts, you bridge gaps, and they follow but never lead. The relationship feels uneven, like you're the anchor keeping it from drifting, and yet because they are warm in reflection, you can convince yourself it's real. That's the subtle danger of substitute energy. It feels real enough to engage you, but not real enough to satisfy your emotional needs. If this pattern feels familiar, it's time to shift your perspective. Don't feel obligated to do all the emotional work alone. Don't convince yourself that reactive attention is equivalent to genuine investment. Pay attention to who initiates consistently without prompt. Give your time and energy to those who actively create space for you, not just reflect what you give. Value the people who match your effort with their own, instead of trying to validate someone who only mirrors your care. Recognize that real emotional connection involves initiative, not just reaction, and choose relationships where you are chosen, not just needed. The third thing that makes it clear you're not their priority, just a substitute, is their emotional withdrawal after getting what they need. You may have noticed it yourself. The moment you provide comfort, validation, or emotional support, they suddenly go cold. This isn't about you doing something wrong or being too much. It's a pattern avoidants repeat because the connection they want is conditional and need-based. They crave closeness in fragments, not true emotional bonding. They absorb what you give, but they rarely create an authentic connection in return. That's the hallmark of substitute energy, filling a void, not building a relationship. At first it can feel confusing. You reach out to offer support, you reassure them, you make space for vulnerability, and for a brief moment, they feel present, warm, engaged. You feel like the bond is growing, but as soon as the moment passes and their immediate need is met, they withdraw. Silence replaces warmth, distance replaces attention, and the connection you thought was mutual suddenly feels one-sided. It's almost as if your effort itself is what mattered to them, not you. They take what they need emotionally, but they rarely give in equal measure. This behavior is subtle but consistent. It creates a cycle where you're always giving, and they're always taking, without balance. You may feel confused. Why were they so close just a minute ago? Why did it feel real? The answer is simple. Avoidants often view relationships as functional rather than reciprocal. They engage emotionally only when it benefits them or meets an internal need. Once that need is satisfied, they pull back to protect themselves from vulnerability or to regain emotional independence. In other words, they never build a safe, consistent and reciprocal connection. They absorb closeness without reciprocation. Over time, this pattern becomes draining. You notice that every time you invest, they seem to step away. Every time you show care, they retreat. And yet when they reappear, warm and attentive again, it's easy to convince yourself that things are improving. This back and forth creates confusion, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. You start measuring your worth by their temporary attention. Instead of seeing the pattern for what it is, they only value what you provide, not who you are. If this pattern feels familiar, it's time to take control of your own emotional well-being. Don't measure your value by someone else's inconsistent presence. Don't justify their coldness as part of their personality, while ignoring the impact on you. Set boundaries around your energy and emotional labor. Give care to those who give care back. Focus on connections where closeness is mutual, not conditional. Recognize that someone who withdraws after getting what they need is showing you their limits, and it's up to you to protect your heart. Stand firm in your worth, invest in people who actively choose you, and refuse to be a temporary placeholder in someone else's life. The fourth thing that makes it clear you're not their priority, just a substitute, is that you get their leftover time, not their intentional time. Avoidance, when they truly prioritize someone, create space for them in their life. They plan around that person, they adjust their schedule, and they consciously invest their time and attention because the relationship matters. But when you are just filling a void, they only give you the moments that are extra, unstructured, or available, the time that wasn't already spoken for. That's substitute energy in action. Their presence is reactive, not deliberate, and it shows exactly how low you sit on their list of priorities. At first, this behavior can feel subtle and even confusing. You notice they are around sometimes, maybe texting late at night, or responding when nothing else is going on. It feels like attention, but it's not intentional. Their presence is convenient, not considered. They show up in moments when it costs them nothing, but when you try to schedule meaningful time together, it's always difficult, delayed, or brushed off. The pattern is consistent. The time they give you is always secondary, extra, leftover, never something they deliberately carve out for you because you matter. This dynamic has a psychological effect that is easy to miss. You may start thinking that their sporadic attention is enough, that small moments are good enough because they are present sometimes, but over time the truth becomes painful. You are never a conscious choice in their schedule, you exist only in the gaps. The energy, the effort, and the attention they reserve for you are all leftovers of their life, not a priority they actively cultivate. This sends a clear message: even if it's subtle, your importance is secondary, your role is supplementary, and your emotional needs are optional. The imbalance is draining. You may notice that they are available when convenient, yet unavailable when you most need connection. They respond when they feel like it, drop plans when it becomes inconvenient, and rarely initiate moments of closeness on their own. Meanwhile, you find yourself adjusting, compromising, and making space for someone who isn't intentionally making space for you. This mismatch between effort and presence reinforces the substitute dynamic. You are the patch, not the priority. If this pattern feels familiar, it's time to reclaim your time and your worth. Don't settle for leftover moments while giving your best intentionally. Notice who actively chooses you, plans for you, and makes space because you matter. Set boundaries around your availability for those who only offer reactive presence. Invest your energy in relationships where time is given intentionally, not grudgingly. Recognize that consistent, deliberate attention is a reflection of value, while leftover time reflects substitution. Protect your time, protect your heart, and prioritize connections where you are genuinely prioritized. The fifth thing that makes it clear you're not their priority, just a substitute, is that they keep you emotionally close, but practically distant. Avoidants often want your heart, your warmth, your attention, but they rarely make space for you in their real life. They take emotional intimacy without integrating you into their daily world. When you are a substitute, this dynamic becomes obvious. You provide comfort and connection, but you never gain tangible presence or consistent partnership. You're close enough to soothe them, but never close enough to truly matter. At first, it can feel flattering. They ask about your day, share personal thoughts, and respond warmly when you need support. You feel emotionally connected, even bonded, because they know how to engage your feelings. But this closeness is carefully controlled. While they pull you into emotional spaces, they keep boundaries in their practical life. No shared responsibilities, no significant commitments, no inclusion in their routines. It creates an illusion of connection while maintaining distance where it truly counts. This behavior is subtle, yet profoundly telling. The avoidant is satisfied with emotional fragments, texts, calls, late-night conversations, but they rarely allow you to intersect with their real unfiltered life. You may notice that they are present when convenient, but absent when it comes to plans, responsibilities, or shared experiences. They avoid true integration because commitment requires vulnerability, accountability, and presence, things they instinctively shy away from. Meanwhile, you are giving consistently, emotionally present and invested, creating an imbalance where your heart is fully in, but their life remains partially closed. Over time, this pattern can be emotionally exhausting. You might feel seen and heard, yet simultaneously invisible in their daily reality. You may question if your connection is real, if your presence matters, or if you're merely a comfort object. This is the essence of substitute energy. They use your emotional availability to soothe themselves without offering reciprocal depth or presence. Emotional closeness without practical inclusion keeps you in a constant state of partial intimacy, enough to feel engaged, not enough to truly belong. If this pattern feels familiar, it's time to take action for your own well-being. Recognize the difference between emotional closeness and practical investment. Don't let warmth and attention replace tangible presence. Value relationships where your life and your heart are equally included. Set boundaries that protect you from being used as emotional support without real integration. Invest your energy in people who not only want your heart but also want to include you in their life. True connection requires both emotional intimacy and practical presence. Don't settle for less. Dear friends, you know avoidants rarely admit what they really feel or think, but their attitudes reveal everything. Their patterns, their pull-push dynamics, their inconsistent attention, and their selective presence are all forms of silent communication. If you ever felt like a substitute in someone's life, it's not because you weren't enough, it's because they treated you like one. And recognizing that truth is the first step toward freedom, not failure. Once you understand this, you gain clarity, and clarity is powerful. It allows you to step back without guilt, without overanalyzing every text, call, or interaction. You can observe their behavior objectively and see where you are being treated as a convenience rather than a priority. This awareness doesn't make you bitter, it makes you wise. You start valuing your time, energy, and emotions in ways you may not have before. Dear friends, consider this: you don't have to wait for someone to realize your worth. You don't need to convince anyone to prioritize you. Instead, invest in yourself, in people who naturally choose to include you in their life, in relationships where effort and care flow both ways. Build routines and habits that nurture your well-being. Focus on your growth, your peace, and your happiness. Surround yourself with people who actively make you feel valued and seen, not just heard or entertained when convenient. The truth isn't meant to hurt you, it's meant to free you. By recognizing patterns, setting boundaries, and protecting your emotional space, you are breaking the cycle. You are creating room for connections that are genuine, reciprocal, and intentional. And most importantly, you are learning that your value is inherent, independent of anyone else's inconsistency. Step forward with calm confidence, knowing that being treated as a priority starts with choosing yourself first.